Cup champion Viktor Hovland into the interview room here at the 2024 BMW Championship, obviously defending this title from last year. Great season last year. Viktor, you're coming in here off a T2 finish at Memphis, something that you needed to do to get here. How proud are you of that effort, and what are you looking forward to this week?
Yeah, that was really cool, especially after being 2 over par after 15 holes last week. It didn't look very good. I was kind of almost mentally preparing just to kind of be done after Memphis and just practice getting some good work with Joe and keep practice on working on some things, and then being able to turn it around like that and not even just secure myself into this week, but also to East Lake as well. And now we're in a pretty nice spot if I have a good week this week to really have a chance next week. So just super pumped about kind of seeing my game improving and going in the right direction. So just super happy to be here.
And just looking forward to this week. You've managed to see the golf course today in the Pro-Am. I don't know if you've played all 18 at all, but what are your first impressions and the adjustments you have to make?
Yeah, I played the back 9 yesterday and then the front 9 today in the Pro-Am. It's a really good golf course. I think it's really fun, especially the back 9 I really liked. I always think it's difficult to design a championship golf course when you're playing in this kind of altitude, but I think they've certainly done a great job here. I think it's a perfect mix of some birdie holes, decent amount of water out there, and some of the par 5s are pretty cool. So, yeah, I love the golf course.
All right, just raise your hand if you have questions, and we'll get a mic to you, and we'll start with Cameron on the left here.
Hi, Viktor. Xander and Scotty have both had special seasons, but they're a little bit different. And if you could just snap your fingers and magically have one of those 2 seasons, which would it be and why?
Well, I think I answered this last week. I think in 20 years' time, I would probably rather have 2 majors, what Xander had, and obviously Scotty winning the Players and the Masters is pretty good too, and with some of the other wins as well. I mean, he's definitely had the better season, but I think in like 20 years back, or 20 years in the future, just looking back at the year, I think I'd rather want to have 2 majors, just personally.
And then secondly, Billy Horschel was in here talking about the FedEx Cup playoffs and emphasizing the playoffs part of it, and how, like in other sports, you don't really, a lot of surprising stuff happens at the end. It's not a season-long thing. Yep. It's more playoffs. Do you feel like the way you're playing right now is sort of emphasizing that anything can happen at the end? Yeah,
or else I shouldn't have any business being here this week. But yeah, I think that's pretty cool. Kind of squeaked by in Memphis, and like showing up that week and just knowing that, okay, if I have a couple of good weeks, we can still win this thing. That gives you a little bit more motivation than just kind of showing up and if this was all over and there wasn't that much I could do to improve my position, that'd be a little different. But I think that's a little exciting. I think gives everyone a reason to tune in and kind of see what's going on, and seeing guys that are just barely getting into the playoffs, and now you suddenly have a chance to win the whole thing. So I think that's an exciting thing about the playoffs.
Yes, sir. On the left here.
Viktor, with you being defending FedEx Cup champ, and there's a lot of talk about the format recently. Do you feel it is a good way to determine the best player for the season?
Definitely not, just because there's few tournaments and you're playing for so many points. I mean, Scotty has definitely earned to be Player of the Year, because I don't think anyone's kind of sniffed his results this year. But it is a playoff for a reason, and I think the playoffs have been through a lot of different iterations, and I don't really know what works best. I think we've got a pretty decent format. I think it works. Is it perfect? I wouldn't say so, but I don't really know a better way you can do it, although I haven't given it too much thought, to be honest with you.
All right, we'll come over to Bob, and then we'll go back to Cam.
You just sort of alluded to it that, on the last Thursday, you maybe weren't in the best place, but you turned it around. And we asked you about this going in, like kind of about your year, and you've gone through this many times. But I just wonder about your resiliency. You've had some down moments this year, and you've been pretty open about it. I mean, where did you find it, and how did you sort of keep yourself from, not just saying, okay, I'm going to, get out of here and get back to work type of thing, and, here you are.
Yeah. Yeah, it's pretty miserable. Like when you're obviously playing bad golf, everyone plays bad golf occasionally, but it's when I feel like I've always been very good at understanding why it's happened, and even if I understand why it happens, it's like, okay, how do I fix it? And that's been like a very difficult thing for me kind of throughout this year. It's like, okay, how do I stop doing what I'm currently doing that's making me not hit the shots that I want to hit? And that it can feel a little bit, you feel a little bit helpless at times when you don't, like, what's wrong, but whatever you do, it doesn't seem to go in the right direction. But I think at the end of the day, I've kind of comforted myself in the way that, like, I'm not broken. It's not my mind that's, like, gone bad, and I have to, like, oh, what if I can never play golf again? It's like, no, my machine is a little bit off. We just need to tweak the machine a little bit, and then we're back to playing good golf again. Whereas I feel like this game is just so stressful, especially when you're playing in front of this many people. Obviously, everyone's paying attention, and when you struggle, it's out there in front of everyone. And I think it's very easy to let that go into your head, and you think it's something wrong with you, instead of, like, I've always kind of not blamed, but I always know that, okay, the reason why I'm hitting this certain shot, like, there's a mathematical reason why that is happening. So if I just figure out why and I go in the range and fix it, like, I'm going to hit good shots again. So I can kind of separate the mental side from the physical side in a way.
When you're in one of those stretches and it's not going the way you want, can you just manage your game around that way and sort of live with it? Or are you trying to fix it during the round, and does that lead to more problems?
So that's what I would say has been one of my strengths, just from probably college to where I've been currently, is that there's been so many times where I'm like, it doesn't feel very good. And I know exactly why, but it's not something that I can just change overnight. But I can at least kind of inch my way closer a little bit day by day. And on the golf course, maybe I find a feel it's not exactly where I want to be, but it's like kind of in the middle. It's not where I currently am, but it's kind of in the middle. So over time, when I keep having that feeling, it's going to get better and better and better every single day. And I've played a lot of really good golf with a golf swing that I haven't felt super comfortable with. And I think when you're in a spot like that, you truly learn how to play the game of golf, because then you have to think more. You have to understand where your misses are going. So I think that's been very helpful for me. It's just this year I got to a point where what I was doing was non-functional. Like, I couldn't predict where the ball was going at all. And that's where you have to really you have to make some changes.
All right, we've got two more lined up. We'll go Cameron over here and then Paul.
Victor, you were in it till the very end at the PGA Championship and ended up, I believe, finishing third. You were in it until the very end in Memphis last week and finished, I think, T2. But it feels like those two things, although they could be looked at as similar, it feels like you're in a very, very different place than you were back in May. Can you speak to that, and how does it feel?
Yeah, it might be too early to tell, but it definitely feels that way, because I think I've gotten some concrete answers. I know where I'm at, and I know where I need to go, and then every day it's just a matter of kind of building on that and just seeing progress. Whereas I feel like in May, I got like an immediate, I saw an immediate improvement, but then it didn't really stick. It just kind of stagnated after that. Whereas now I felt like I've found something a little bit more concrete, more tangible. So I do believe that last week wasn't a fluke. Now I might not play like that every week, but I do feel like my game now in the coming weeks are going to have a higher it's just going to have a higher consistency. I'm going to play better day in, day out than I did before.
Okay, we'll go Paul and then Adam and wrap it up.
Victor, you're talking a lot about how it feels when it hasn't gone right or when it doesn't feel good. When you are playing really well, like take back to when this time last year, what does that feel like for you? Is it like some guys say they kind of just almost like black out when they're playing really well? For you, what does when you're playing really well feel like?
Yeah, it's just obviously I'm sure we've all heard like just don't think. You know, you just step up there and you just react, which is obviously the best mindset to be in. But if you have a technique that's off or you're doing something that's not very good, as soon as you don't think, that's your motor pattern. And if your motor pattern sucks, like it's just not going to help. So I think we have to just do all the work on the practice range, in the practice rounds. And then when you kind of see that the ball is matching with the image that you have in your head and you've seen that enough over time, then you just step out to the golf course and you're like, okay, there's water left, but I know that I'm every time I'm starting that ball left and it cuts away from the water. So what's the point of being nervous? You know, you essentially know what's going to happen. So I think when you've seen the result in practice and you start seeing it in tournaments, it's easier to go, okay, yeah, let's just step up and hit my normal shot, and then yeah, it usually turns out pretty well.
A lot of people are talking about the altitude this week. Just wondering, in your work with Dodo, if he's said anything in particular about altitude and approaching it.
No, we haven't chatted too much about that this week. Just a couple strategy points off the tee and stuff. And then Shay and I, we've just been on the range trying to do some work with seeing how far the ball's going, and brought a TrackMan out on the golf course and kind of checked every single shot in the Pro-Am and in the practice round yesterday just to see if it matches up from what we saw on the range. So,
is there a level of patience you have to have? Just like at sea level, a 200 shot, if you hit 200, it's probably going to go 200. At elevation, sometimes you hit the shot, you think, okay, it's going to go 210, but because of just kind of the air, it doesn't. Is there kind of some patience involved in maybe feeling like it was a perfect shot, but just because of the conditions, is not going to do that?
Yeah, I don't know. I'm kind of a rookie when it comes to playing in an altitude like this, so I'm kind of just trying to learn as much as possible, and I guess it is easy to let yourself go like, man, I'm hitting a 50 degree, and my 50 degree out here goes 155 yards. And when you're hitting a 50 degree, if you miss your target distance-wise by like 6-7 yards, you're like, man, that's bad. You know, you should have better distance control. But then you got to remember you're hitting it from 155, and at sea level, if I'm hitting a 9-iron and I'm 5, 6, 7 yards off, that's actually a decent shot. So I think you got to be a little bit kind to yourself, and when your distance control is maybe a little bit off, because there's a lot of variance when it comes to the altitude, the wind. You don't know how much is going to be affected, and then the spin rate on the ball, stuff like that. So it's just there's a lot of calculations that go into it.
Two more quick ones. We'll go Adam and Keith.
Victor, you were in danger of being the first BMW champ not to be able to defend your title.
Nice.
How come, I'm just curious, why did you not consider, or did you consider at all, adding 3M or Wyndham to maybe help your chances?
I didn't really feel like it. If I didn't feel like my game was in a good enough spot to where I could even garner more FedEx Cup points, I didn't want to just go there and try to make the cut and then go home. So I felt like my time was better spent taking, Wyndham off, for example, being with Joe in Nashville, and I felt like we really got some good work in. And if it wasn't for that week, I would not have finished second last week. And so that's why I really value those practice weeks where we're actually getting good work in and I can see results in my practice. That's going to give me confidence to play well when I enter a tournament, instead of just like play 9 weeks in a row when your game feels terrible. Like that doesn't accomplish anything. I'd rather play well when I'm first there.
All right, Keith.
Victor, I'm curious. A lot's being made of the altitude adjustment on length, but with your work with Joe, and I know Joe can get pretty deep into the short game numbers, are you guys making any adjustments when it comes to pitching or anything closer to the green, maybe when it comes to spin control or something like that, versus the entire length narrative that we keep just hearing about?
Yeah, the short game stuff this week is obviously completely different turf that we're playing on this week compared to Memphis last week. Get some really grainy Bermuda, super sticky. So last week it was a lot of moving forward, hitting ball first. It was kind of difficult to open the face a lot and kind of try to launch the ball up in the air because you're worried about kind of hitting the ground first. And if you do that on Bermuda grass, you're dead, which I'm sure you saw plenty of guys doing last week, just kind of chip it 5 feet. This week you have some pure lies. They're very tight, and here you can definitely kind of slap the club into the ground a little bit and pop the ball straight up. But that's just kind of the grass this week. So that's kind of what I'm working on in short game.
But there's no difference based upon the altitude and the thinness of the air?
There might be, but not that I'm really aware of. I don't think I need to get that deep with it.
I didn't mean you, just
No, good.
Just Joe.
Now you're in my head.
All right, Victor, thanks very much for your time. Good luck this week in your defense, and we'll get the AC turned back on for everybody.
Thank you.